Hi, welcome to the Unbridictable podcast because sometimes life is unpredictable. I'm Bree and thanks for checking out my channel. This is episode 2. Today I'll be talking about what life is like as a speech pathology graduate student as requested in the comment of my first episode, and I'll also be talking about testing because I know for me, it's definitely been on my mind, and I know similar fields have a big test they have to study for to get certified. So that's also what I'll be talking about in today's episode. So without further ado, let's get started. Yes, so in my first episode, someone left a lovely comment asking what a day in the life is like for speech pathology graduate students. And the first thing I'm going to say is I think it's better to say a week in the life, just because each semester, a day in the life is going to look very different for me and like my friends in my cohort as well. So for example, one day I could literally just have class after class, and that's literally just my entire day. But then another day in the week, all I have is clinic, where I have to get my clinical hours or my experiential hours. So really it depends on who you are, like where you are at. The one thing that's consistent with me and my friends in my cohort is when we have classes. That is literally it. Besides that, we all have, well, I don't want to say it's completely different, but certain Group A has like this sort of schedule and Group B has this sort of schedule. So I'll dive more into depth about what a class day looks like versus what a clinic day looks like. I've even had my first semester, for example. It was really interesting because not a lot of people had like 2 days off. I think I had like Monday off and Friday off. But then in turn, my Wednesdays and Thursdays got busy because in the morning we would have classes, and then in the afternoon I would safely go to my clinic and get my clinical hours in the afternoon. So really, it does depend semester by semester on whether class days and clinic days are separate or if they're merged together. But basically, for class, most of the classes touch at least one, if not more than one, of the 9 domains, which I did not talk about that in my first episode. So speech pathology, we have to have a basic understanding of 9 different domains in our field, and every time I list them, I feel like I can very quickly list like 6 or 7 of them, and then I always have to try and remember which 2 or 1 or 2 I haven't gotten. So we'll see if today is the day where I list all 9 of the domains confidently. So speech, language, hearing, cognition, swallowing, fluency, voice, AAC, and I was on a roll. I was on such a big roll. Did I say voice? Is that the missing one? Shoot. Oh, social. I don't think I said social. I think I had already said voice. I think social's the missing one. I feel pretty confident now that I listed the 9 areas. I then proceeded to try again in flawlessly listing the 9 areas and struggled to do so. So then I did this. I'll write out the list and read it out because I know some people process things better auditorily than they do visually. Speech, language, fluency, voice, cognition, swallowing, social, augmentative and alternative communication, and hearing. Whew. All right. Anyway, point being, throughout graduate school and undergraduate school, we take classes that talk about one or more of these domains that I listed, and that's because all of those domains have to do with how we communicate or how we swallow, basically. When I say social, I'm talking social aspects of communication, cognition, cognitive aspects of communication. Communication and swallowing essentially are like the core aspects that we study and we become professionals in, I should say. So this semester, for example, we have courses in neurocognitive, so the domain of cognition would be there. We have autism and AAC, so augmentative alternative communication devices are there. And then we have a fluency course this semester, so that's 3 domains. And then we have a 4th course called clinicians meeting, where we talk about ethics and different skills necessary to practice as a speech language pathologist. That's the exception class. The other classes mainly focus on one of the domains, but the clinicians meeting courses has been, because there's more than one course, the courses have been very helpful in talking about more the practical skills and knowledge that's necessary to practice. So that essentially is what a class looks like. Each professor has their own style of teaching and in testing us. So that's class. And then clinic, again, varies. Class is like the more consistent thing because we all have to take the same class at the same time. They're literally 3 hours long. Something I've had to get used to because undergrad, you usually have like 1 hour-ish classes. So it was a bit of an adjustment, but I'd say I'm pretty adjusted at this point. Considering that I'm almost graduating. I'm almost there. But yes, clinic. It looks different for each person in each semester. First semester, I was at a local private practice. Second semester, I was at a pediatric outpatient clinic. Third semester, I was at a telehealth aphasia clinic. And now I'm currently at a reading specialty clinic. So very, very diverse, very different experiences. Each supervisor, because we all get paired with a supervisor that teaches us essentially how to do their job in their setting. So some of my supervisors had specialties with hearing loss, like one of them is even fluent in American Sign Language, which is really cool. My current supervisor is like an expert in a particular reading program called the LIPS program, the Lindemood phoneme program, yes, or phonetic, something like that. If you Google it, like LIPS reading program on Google, it'll come up. That's what I'm currently learning. It's really interesting to see how much you can really learn and how much you can specialize, essentially. I've heard a lot from my cohort friends. They've been in I too have been in the hospital setting, the outpatient pediatric, but some of them have been in inpatient, which is a setting I've never been in. When I say inpatient, that's like the classic hospital setting we all think about. They've shared how that's different than private practice. It's, from what they've told me, it's definitely more fast-paced and going patient to patient, and they all have different things that we help with. Well, I will say it's more swallow heavy. That's one of the domains I mentioned earlier, and we get to evaluate what the patient's swallows look like. That's something I haven't experienced yet, but I think I've taken a course on it though, so I have a basic understanding. That's the purpose of grad school, at least for our field, is to have a competent understanding in all the domains that I mentioned earlier. It's impossible with those 9 areas to get 400 hours to become an expert in all 9 of those domains. You usually pick a few of those domains or populations to specialize in. Oh, hello. I got a reminder to do something that I already did. But yeah, that was me blabbering away about how really the point being to wrap this up in a bow, depending on what setting you're in, dictates what a day typically looks like for me. So at least for me, currently, clinically, it looks like me trying to have kids make sure they know how they make their sounds, because that's the foundational skill to reading. If you don't know how you make the sounds and how the sounds come together to make words, then you won't have a hard time reading. So, pretty flexible, chill schedule. It's 2 of my days. Yeah, 2 of my days in the week are dedicated to learning about the program and teaching kids how to read. So that's what it looks like for me. So that, now that I've sort of answered that, if anyone watching this has any further questions about what it's like to be a speech pathology graduate student, you're welcome to put it in the comment section below. I know I was a little bit all over the place with that, but that's essentially how I would organize it. Class days and clinic days, and that's what a week in my life as a speech pathology graduate student looks like. Now, earlier I mentioned the other thing I was going to talk about is testing. That's because this semester my peers and I have 2 big tests to worry about, essentially. One of which is so that way we can graduate with our master's degree. The other is so that way we can become certified as speech-language pathologists. So I'll go over the one that we need to graduate first, and that's called the oral comps in our program, at least. And we literally had one of our academic director came in and gave us a little talk on what we should expect. And it's basically my understanding, and did I go over this in the first episode? I don't remember. But to elaborate a bit more, I know if I did mention it in the first episode that it wasn't going to be that much, but basically with our program, we are handed a piece of paper with a case description, case history, and there's like questions below the little case history or case brief, I should say, and we have to answer. Well, it depends on the professor. Each professor is different. The academic director is one of the professors who will be testing us, and she was saying, at least for hers, that she usually uses the questions at the bottom of the page as like a guide to the discussion, but she's not concerned if every question is answered. What the academic director and the clinical director of our program was saying was that they want to see our clinical judgment in action based off of the information about the patient, the made-up patient that they come up with in their imagination, what we would do. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what all the professors are looking for. Their testing style or the case is going to be a bit different because each domain warrants slightly different but similar protocols. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to have to think about what we want to do assessment-wise, and basically assessing what the patient's skills are, or what they are able to do, and what opportunities for growth are, and then how we can help grow those skills that have the opportunity to grow, if that makes any sense. And so it's something you have to study for, just because in a sense I've mentioned to you already that there's 9 domains, and so we usually pick on a few domains per semester. So it's like the one from last year, because we started fall of last year, a lot of us are like, it's been a hot minute since we've talked about some domains, so it's just more like refreshing, but it's still nervous, or a lot, at least for myself, and I know my peers as well. We're definitely nervous for it, just because we're like, are we going to say the wrong thing? Is it going to cause me to not graduate? But they assured us that there's a process for remediation if you need. So if we have a bad, anxious day, we can essentially do something else to help us, to make sure that we can feel confident enough in our competence to graduate and feel better. Well, I don't want to say feel better, but but it would make us feel better if we can be like, I knew I should have said that, because we've all had those moments, I'm sure, in school where we're like, I should have said this, or should have put this answer in a test. So that's one thing we have to worry about. And then the other one is called the Praxis, and this is the test we have to take in order to be certified as speech-language pathologists by our governing body, the American Speech-Language Hearing Association. If you're from another country, you have another country that governs the speech pathologists there. I am from the United States of America, so that's my governing body for my certification. So the Praxis, at least to my understanding, is one long multiple choice question that's going to take a few hours. My friends have told me that they've compared the Praxis to like the bar if you're trying to become a lawyer, or the MCAT if you're trying to become a doctor. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not trying to become a full-on doctor or a lawyer, so I'm just sort of comparing it just to get the point that it's like, it's this big test you have to take in order to become certified. Those are like famous tests you have to take in order to become a doctor, in order to become a lawyer. So the Praxis is like our version of that. Like, that's the test we have to take to be certified. And so I'm still feeling nervous. I definitely think I have to do some studying in the next few weeks. I scheduled my Praxis test to take it in October, like middle of October. So wish me luck. Thankfully, my peers and I have been doing a study group every week. So that's been helpful, but I definitely think I also need to do some studying on my own. Our academic director actually suggested for the comps, and I think it'll be useful for the Praxis too, to pair up with someone who feels like your weakness is like their strengths and vice versa. So I definitely plan on reaching out to some folks this upcoming week being like, hey, what do you think your strengths are? And what do you think your opportunities for growth are? Maybe we could be study buddies. No, I've become good friends with a bunch of folks in my cohort, so I'm sure I'll be able to find someone, and I'm sure someone will want to be like, yes, please, I need to study too, because we're all in the same boat. But yeah, if you happen to come across this and you're like, oh my goodness, I can relate. I have to take XYZ test in my field. I have to take the bar. I have to take the MCAT. I'm stressed out about it. Hopefully I can give some general testing advice after I'm done taking the Praxis. I'm manifesting that I am, you know what, no, I did this as I'm manifesting. I am manifesting that I'm gonna pass the Praxis and my comps, both of them, and that I can make another episode in the future being like, yeah, you know that test I was telling you about? Yeah, I passed. I was really nervous about it. But I guess I can do this as like a pre-test discussion in a sense. As if I see, my friends have been like, oh yeah, if I took the tests or the comps now, I think I would do well. And in my head, I'm like, good for you. See, I don't want to doubt myself. I feel like I know for sure that I know more than I think I do, but at the same time, I'm like, some topics I have not talked about in a hot minute, and I think in the next few weeks, those topics will be talked about in the study groups I was talking about. But one part of me is like, I know for myself, and I don't know if this is the same for the bar or the MCAT, that at least with like when I was taking like the ACT and the GRE, the more practice tests I do, the more like studying I do, the more confident I'll feel, because I've already taken the classes. I think it's just more so refreshing myself and also getting used to the test styles, because like if you've taken the ACT, SAT, GRE, those all have different testing styles. I did better on the ACT than I did with the SAT in high school, just because with like the ACT, I literally took a bunch of practice tests, so I'm like, okay, it's like I know how to do the math, it's just SAT math and ACT math are slightly different. So I think it's going to be very similar here, where I'm like, okay, my professor's test and the Praxis test are two different tests, so now I'm used to my professors and the way they test, but not necessarily the Praxis. So I feel like no matter how many practice tests I take, I'm still gonna be boom, 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 like closer. I feel almost calmer now just because I'm like, October's so far away, but I'm sure as I'm making more episodes, I'm gonna be like, y'all, I'm nervous. So honestly, even every time I have like a deep talk about a topic where I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to remember. Even last week, it was just so much test talk between like the Praxis and the comps, where like at the end of last week, I was just like, I cannot. I cannot with this. No, I can. Manifestation. Psychology. I did have to take AP Psychology. Don't want to let my AP Psych teacher down. I can do it. So fake it till you make it sometimes, you know. If you verbally tell yourself I can do it, I like to think that means that helps me believe in myself a bit more, and I hope it helps you too. So, yeah, that's what I mainly planned for talking about today. Actually, that's right. Before I forget, I was just going to mention as well that this past summer it was more clinic heavy rather than class heavy. We still had class, but it was like 2 months that we had classes. So it's like 2 months that we had class and then 2 months where it was like literally just clinic that we had to focus on and nothing else. So this past week I had to take an exam. I passed. Good. It was fine. But like just getting back into the habit of, so that's the other thing that's influencing me. So I guess I could also say getting back into the groove of studying can be hard. Like, oh my God. Like if anyone is like literally like just doing an internship during the summer and it was like, oh, like I'm chilling, all I have to do is go to the internship and that's it, and then you come back to the fall and you're like, oh my God, what is studying? I feel you. Hopefully, I feel like since I had to do this test, I'm hoping that it just helps me get into like the study mindset again, because I was just like, I'm like, what is studying? Jeez, but I just wanted to throw that bit in there. It definitely made me feel weird and like, but yes, that is truly it for today's episode. Let me know, what question do I want to ask? What is a test you have coming up that you're nervous for and I can cheer you on and other people can cheer you on in the comments below? And yeah, like I mentioned before, if you have any questions about what life is like as a speech pathology graduate student that you'd like for me to answer, let me know. If there's like enough comments, and then I might just make a Q&A video. But yeah, thank you so much for watching the Unbridictable podcast, because sometimes life is unpredictable. Bye.